Good morning, everybody. Guys, today, to kick off the week, we got some pretty exciting news, honestly. We got two champions being buffed, as well as some shard events. There's always shard events on CVC. But we got two champions being buffed that, honestly, were not really that good. One of them being a free fusion champion and the other one being Jing Juan. But first up, let's talk about the fusion events coming up. So tomorrow, start of CVC on Tuesday, we're having a 15x progressive chance event for the following champions: Gioth True Shield, White Queen Ancora, Pythion, Rework, Marichka, and Ursuga. Of course, if you're looking for any of these specific champions, you know which one you're looking for, you know which one to go for. But to be honest, unless you're pretty far in the game, 2x Ancients, extra legendary events are probably just the best way to go for you. And then on Wednesday, July 3rd, we're having a 15x progressive chance event for Newt, Lady Kimmy, Valkyrie, Lysandra. Now, I say that in the previous one for Tuesday, but on Wednesday with Newt being involved in the 15x, if you're somebody who doesn't have Newt, he is such a game-changing champion that it may be worth considering, depending on where you're at in the game, to actually pull for him. He is a game-changing champion, amazing for Hydra, Dungeons, Sand Devil. He is so good. And if you're somebody who missed him on his fusion, then you already know how good he is, and I don't have to explain it. But these are the champions, and we have Yumiko as well as Carlon the Ringer. Both awesome champions. Most people will probably be pulling for Yumiko because she's just insane, right? But the Ringer dude, he's pretty good too. I've seen him used pretty well in some areas, but honestly, Yumiko versus him, I think Yumiko is just going to win out all the time. But now let's talk about the champions being buffed. So I was very surprised to see this, specifically a champion who I didn't think they were going to do anything too, because they don't seem like they typically adjust fusion champions after they've come out, but I could be wrong. Maybe that's the main thing they do buff. Either way, we have Great Hoof Loriaka getting some changes. This is crazy because she was basically a useless champion. I don't know anybody who actually used her. Her A1 was a double hit, chance of stealing one random buff, not that cool. Her A2 was an AoE, it's cool. Chance of placing 50% decreased resistance, fills a champion's turn meter. It's not the worst thing, and you could put some like curse set or provoke set on her, but it didn't really bring enough to really justify bringing her into Hydra, because accuracy is typically not something hard to hit. You're decreasing the enemy's resistance, it's just making it easier to apply your debuffs, which really isn't a problem for most players pushing somewhat high levels of Hydra. The resistance of the Hydra heads isn't the issue. It's their accuracy, really. Like, trying to resist that stuff is very difficult. Resisting the steals from Mischief and so on. And then her A3 places a block debuffs on all allies for 2 turns, also fills a turn meter of all allies by 20%. So a pretty good turn meter boost on a 3-turn cooldown when it's fully booked, and then her passive fills this champion's turn meter by 5% each time an ally buff is removed, transferred, stolen, or expires. So her kit was kind of lackluster, couldn't really fit her in anywhere specific, but now the changes coming into play, she's going to be pretty decent, I believe. So now her A1 is also going to fill this champion's turn meter by 10% for each buff stolen. So we have one extra turn meter boost there going. And then her A2, on top of the decreased resistance, is also going to give 50% decreased accuracy for 2 turns, which now we have some possible Hydra uses. Decreased accuracy plus decreased resistance. And then her Dance of War ability, also on top of the block debuffs, placing a 50% increased accuracy. So now your allies are going to have increased accuracy. The enemies are going to have decreased resistance and decreased accuracy. So getting Mischief tanks in is going to be easy. You don't even need to build your champions for accuracy, really, to get them to place their debuffs, because what she's bringing is so powerful to make sure your team's actually going to place their debuffs when they should. Now, since she's bringing an AoE A2 ability that is a 3-turn cooldown, an A3 that is on a 3-turn cooldown when fully booked, I'm starting to think of like, okay, she could be a provoke champion, possibly, provoke set. She could be in a curse set, bringing a hex, a bunch of debuffs, very solid utility there. She has a lot of turn meter boost from her other skills, plus her A3 ability fills a turn meter of all allies by 20%. So now all of a sudden, Loriaka goes from probably pretty low in Hydra to actually pretty high. Like, this is a champion worth building for a lot of players to throw into their Hydra teams. Fills his champion's turn meter by 5% each time an ally buff is removed, transferred, stolen, or expires. Maybe could work decent against the Head of Mischief, but ideally, you're not going to get anything stolen. So let me know what you guys think about Loriaka's changes. I really think these changes were solid enough to give her more roles in Hydra, because that's the main thing with Hydra. If you're bringing a champion who fills a role that's not that important, which is decreased resistance, it's a great thing to have. Like on champions, let me think of one off the top of my head. Grazer, I think he brings a decreased resistance, right? Where is this dude at? Grazer, Iron God. I don't have him in my account. Oh, he's an Ogre Tribe. Let's see if he does this real quick. I think he brings decreased resistance. I don't know. No, he brings increased resistance. There are some champions who bring decreased resistance. I don't even know who they are off the top of my head. Maybe it's Feral. Let's see if Feral does it real quick. they're great to have, but they have to bring other stuff as well. So no, he doesn't bring decreased resistance. It's these increased resistances I'm thinking of. So decreased resistance, it's difficult to get in a lot of times. Now, Deliana, she does bring it, right? Like, I know she does. Decreased resistance, yeah, so she does do it. It's a single target, though. I believe it has a chance to spread it. But either way, decreased resistance isn't a debuff you can typically fit into your teams unless that champion brings other useful things. In Deliana's case, she brings a block buffs AoE. Very good, very solid champion. You can throw her in there. But now, Loriaka comes into the conversation of actually being a legitimately useful Hydra champion. And now let's jump over to the next champion. The next champion is somebody who was released a long time ago. Everybody dreaded to pull him. This was a champion you wanted to dodge. You did not want to get Jing Juan from your Void Shards, but now he is going to be a Hydra beast. So before, his A1, attacked one enemy, transfers all debuffs from this champion to the target. This wasn't a bad skill. It had some use cases, but I mean, not really enough to justify using him super popularly, as reflected in his ratings. Oh my gosh, those are horrible ratings. His A2 ability was a single target hit, places block active skills for 3 turns if the target is under decreased accuracy or decreased crit damage debuff, which is something he places from his A3. AoE attack 2 times. First hit has a chance of placing decreased accuracy. The second hit has a chance of placing decreased crit damage, and then places strengthen on this champion for 2 turns. His passive, we'll get into that in just a minute. I'm going to go ahead and read over the changes. These are not the changes, those are the shard events. This is the changes right here. So now, his A1 ability is going to still transfer all the debuffs from this champion to the target, but also has a 50% chance of placing stun for 1 turn. This is good, nothing crazy, but the next part is where it gets pretty insane. So remember before his A2 ability was attacks 1 enemy? Well, now it's attacks all enemies. This is game changing for him. Has a 75% chance of increasing the duration of all debuffs on all enemies by 1 turn. Also places block active skills, which isn't going to be placed on Hydra anyways, and a block buffs debuff for 2 turns. So now all of a sudden, you have a champion bringing one of the most impactful debuffs for Hydra, which is the block buffs, no longer has the condition of requires him having a decreased accuracy or decreased crit damage. Now it's just places those after his attack. So we could even consider curse set or provoke set on Jing Juan as well. But the block buffs is huge. That is such a needed debuff for Hydra. And then his A3 Power Flare is still AoE attacks all enemies 2 times. The first hit has an 80% chance of removing all buffs from all enemies. So now he brings a strip as well. The second hit has an 80% chance of placing decreased accuracy and decreased crit damage for 2 turns. Decreased crit damage, not really a debuff you need to have in Hydra, but as long as you're not overcapping the debuff bar and not able to place provokes, not a huge deal. And then he places strengthen on all allies. So they like completely reworked Jing Juan from being a garbage tier champion, according to everybody in the player base basically, to now a, easily high-rated Hydra champion, very, very useful champion in a lot of areas. Like, I actually want Jing Juan now. But having an AoE skill on the A3, an AoE on the A2, bringing such strong debuffs, plus a strengthen on all allies, man, it's a very solid kit now. Now, I don't believe there was any other changes to his passive. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything. Okay, so there was no other changes to his passive. This is going to be coming in the upcoming update as well. So probably around the time of the fusion. Now, his passive is going to be the same. He's immune to fear, true fear, CC debuffs. And then at the end of each enemy or ally turn, removes all fear, yada, 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 from all allies and places block debuffs for 1 turn on all allies who have their debuffs removed. So, pretty cool stuff there. Now, with Jing Juan's kit, if you have him, pull him out of the vault. He was probably there to begin with. And now you can definitely fit him into Hydra stuff. But his changes were so significant. This is like one of those times where they changed Kandrafan or they changed Mashald from being like a garbage tier champion nobody even cares about to now those champions are very good. And everybody knows that. Most players don't even remember the days when those champions were bad. But Mashald and Kandrafan used to be both pretty poor champions. Like nobody talked about them. They just weren't that good. And now if you have them, you're actually excited. So Jing Juan is a champion who, if you've been dreading pulling a Jing Juan, trying to dodge him forever, well now you can be excited to pull him. His A2, incredible. His A3, very solid. Actually lets him have that status of being a Void Legendary champion, not dreading to pull him. I mean, these are very solid skills. And the thing to keep in mind is you can have him with a curse set or provoke set. So now you're bringing block buffs. You're bringing decreased accuracy, which is actually really good for the Head of Mischief, like I already mentioned. You're bringing a decreased crit damage, which I don't really care too much about that. And then you can have a cursed or a provoke, whatever you want. And then you get also a strengthen on all allies for 2 turns. Strengthen is a buff that there's some champions who can place it. Lydia, Mithrala, 2 free options, but sometimes it's a difficult one to fit into your teams. It's a great one to have. It just straight 25% damage mitigation, which is incredible, but sometimes it's a little difficult to fit in. Now, as far as his cooldowns go, cooldown increased. Okay, minus 5 turns. Let me see. So before Jing Juan's cooldown on that ability was 4, 3, 2, so it's going to be 5, 4, 3. So it means a 3-turn cooldown. Okay, that makes sense. I mean, a 2-turn cooldown, AoE skill that did that much stuff, probably a little bit OP. He also going to bring a strip, right? But now it's going to be a 3-turn cooldown when it's fully booked. Not that bad. And he has a strip as well. I mean, this crazy stuff, guys. He has so much good stuff for Jing Juan. Very solid champion. But guys, let me know what you think. Let me know if you're going to be bringing either one of these champions out of the vault. Let me know what you got going on. I got a new Hydra Brutal team coming up very soon with my Obero. I'm looking forward to pushing it and trying to do 1 billion damage. I'm pretty confident in this one, but we're going to see how it works out. Unfortunately, I forgot to push 3v3 last night and I D-ranked. But either way, thank you all for watching. Hope you all have a great week this week, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.